Tonight, our guest speakers are Jacksonville Jaguars Vice Presidents Megha Parekh and Chad Johnson. They will be moderated by UNF men's basketball head coach Matthew Driscoll, a champion of leadership development in students. Facilitated by Coach Driscoll, Megha and Chad will discuss how they employ collaborative leadership at the executive level to collectively tackle organizational goals and develop winning strategies. Please join me in welcoming Coach Matthew Driscoll, Megha Parekh, and Chad Johnson.
Thank you, guys. We're going to jump right into this, and obviously we want to get a lot of stuff out, get a lot of information, and then get a lot of questions from you, and really have great interaction between us. Real quick though, Megha and Chad are going to give you their brief background about where they went to school and a couple things about it to kind of give you a setting, and then we're going to jump right into the first question. So Megha, why don't you start with us?
Sure. So I'm our Vice President and General Counsel. Prior to coming to the Jags, I've been there about 18 months. I worked at a law firm in New York with a sports practice. There were three buckets: the labor side, so we handled CBA negotiations; the litigation side, so handled things like the Dodgers bankruptcy; and then the group that I was in was corporate, so did buying and selling teams, financing, stadium development. And one of the deals that I worked on was the acquisition of the Jaguars. So when the position opened up, they asked me if I'd be interested in coming down, and I signed up here. Before that, I went to undergrad and law school up in Boston at Harvard.
Awesome. Chad?
Well, Megha's a lot smarter than I am, obviously. Wow. I went to a small school in the Midwest called Augustana College. I played baseball and football there. Graduated with a degree in biology, so it probably makes sense that I'm sitting up here today and representing the Jaguars. But I've worked in sports for 15 plus years. I've worked in all four leagues. I worked for the Detroit Pistons in the NBA. I worked for the Tampa Bay Lightning and Florida Panthers in the NHL. Most recently, I came up from Miami, where I opened up the Marlins' new ballpark. Spent a couple years there on the construction site. Here's someone likes that. And I've been here at the Jaguars for 2.5 years now, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales. So I handle every ticket sales, service operations, making sure we get our fans to the game, and then work with our team on the experience in the game as well.
So you brought the pool concept from the Marlins to the Jaguars.
Well, the Marlins did have a pool,
yeah,
and it was sponsored by the Clevelander. We now have two pools,
yeah,
and they're sponsored by the Clevelander. There may or may not be a relation there.
We're going to answer these questions as you wish. We're going to start with Megha, and then obviously, Chad, you jump in when Megha kind of gets through it. I think the first thing we really need to know is, what do you think was a defining moment in your life that prepared you for where you are today as the Senior Vice President in the NFL? There's only 32 teams in the NFL, and you guys, whether you want to be humble or not, or however you want to phrase it, you guys are very few people in America that have your title. So what was a defining moment you think that prepared you for this?
So for me, my second year of law school, first year's tough. It's just a tough environment, and that's how it's built, and it's meant to be a year where you put your head down and you study. My second year of law school, I lotteried into a class on sports law. Always grew up loving sports, pretty much the world's worst athlete other than at wiffle ball. And so I was standing outside a classroom one day, and the professor said, "We're starting a new program with local sports teams. Would you be interested in an externship?" And I thought, sure, this is a great opportunity to get out. Within the week, I was sitting with the assistant GM and the director of pro personnel at the Red Sox. I'm generally sort of a quiet person, but I knew baseball. So I had grown up in high school. I was sort of a nerdy kid, and our baseball coach asked me if I would help keep the players eligible. And in exchange, he taught me all about the game. And so I did the book for 4 years and traveled with the team and tutored the guys. And so 6 or so years later, I'm sitting there with them, and I asked them if they'd be interested in an internship. Got an internship with baseball ops at the Red Sox at the time when they were building their scouting platform. Theo was at the helm of that baseball ops department, and they had just won the World Series. So it was a really, really exciting time. It was never a place where I thought that I would necessarily end up, and had I not had sort of that unique background, I would be there. But ever since that moment, sort of walking into the basement of Fenway, working in baseball ops, I thought, okay, this is a world that I could live in, and that sort of got me comfortable in there, and now here I am.
Wow. Chad?
You know, for me, the way I describe it is the day I found my passion. And, so I had a degree in biology, and like many of you, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do right after I graduated. So I went to go work for John Deere, and through a mutual friend in a golf tournament, I got offered a job by the Detroit Pistons. And I was kind of just bouncing around, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do, and hadn't found my passion. And the first game that I went to and walked down on the court with a family at the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit, and had all of these fans streaming in the lights. I walked there and I'm like, whoa, this isn't work anymore. And that day I found my passion for what I wanted to do, and I've been in sports ever since. That was 1999. And so now I've from there, always loved what I do with my job, and that was the defining moment.
Wow, that's obviously two opposite stories, kind of two different ways to get there, but it's amazing how sometimes our young people don't understand opportunities are sometimes in front of us, and we just don't realize until 5-10 years down the road how different things really affected us, and how, leaders aren't just, they just don't come out of the womb. Leaders have certain traits, leaders have things inside them, and they're developed and they're nurtured. However, today, right now, one of the biggest issues we have, unfortunately, is women. And women, unfortunately, in the NFL right now, it's not a good mix as far as how they're being portrayed and how they're being put out there, and it's unfortunate and it's really disappointing. However, how does a woman, obviously in a situation like the NFL, how do a woman in a leadership role like you have, how does that play out? How many teams have a woman in a leadership role like you?
I would say that working in a New York law firm, I actually work with more women in leadership roles now than I did before. So that's sort of interesting. But it really starts with the leadership above me. So having worked on the acquisition, having met our owner, and then our team president, worked at the stadium company that the Jets and Giants formed to develop MetLife Stadium. Both were clients of mine. I'm very fortunate to work in an environment where from Shad, Mark, Dave, Gus, all four of them, when they look at me, you can tell they don't see me any differently than they see Chad. And that's something that I'm very fortunate to just have been put in that environment with four people who are really, really supportive and responsive and hold me accountable in the same way they hold Chad accountable and don't treat me any differently, which is great. On the professional side, I've been really lucky that way, where I've been put into that environment and been put in a position where as much responsibility as I want to take on, I've been given. Obviously, the league itself has some challenges, not just on the professional side, but with the way that women are portrayed. Because we have a critical mass of women at the Jags now, we've done a couple of things. One is that we've started getting female employees together. It's a different set of challenges for us. So in the really fortunate way, there's no overt sexism that comes my way. When what happened with Ray Rice happened, Dave, Gus, and our director of PR called me to Gus's office to talk about it and said, what do you want to do? So they proactively reach out. Take it upon myself to then, now that I'm in this role, talk to people about things. For me, it's not so much about combating overt discrimination. It's about making sure that people are aware of the more subtle ways that it still exists in our society and allowing people to live with a greater consciousness. We get all the female employees together once a month to watch TED Talks or just talk about professional development or issues that they might be facing in the office. And it served as a real platform for talking about issues that women might still face and drawing attention to the ways in which we may still need to work on some things, but at the same time, I've been given a great platform at the Jags as a woman to really reach out to people and serve as an example. And I take that seriously and try to sort of help others and coach them as well.
Chad, I know you're not a woman.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've already distinguished you're not as smart as Megha, but like women in your situation as well too, you've been through different organizations, you've been in different leadership roles, even at John Deere, who knows? How the leadership role of a woman, how has that been for you as well?
What I've seen in the experience is leaders create culture, and culture is what drives that down, right? And I'm lucky with Megha and our CFO, Kelly Flanagan, that they're two of the most talented women I've ever worked with. And from there, it really guides that culture down with everyone. My staff is made up of almost 50% women. We have a culture and an idea, in our organization at least, that we will hire the most talented and passionate people, irregardless necessarily maybe even of the role or their experience, because the talent and the passion we can't teach. From there, I hope as leaders, we can teach them the rest of the things they'll need to be successful. So just in the 2.5 years I've been part of the team, we've grown our staff in the sales area from 14 to 47 people. So when you hire that many of them are former UNF grads that we've hired recently, but when you hire that many people, we just look for the best people and then put them in the roles to be successful. So I have people in entry-level roles, leadership roles, men and women in each of those positions, and that's how we view it, is give them the tools to be successful, regardless of their sex, and you'll see that now across our entire company.
Before we talk about mentoring of a leader and how you can help develop and nurture them, Megha said something, I think, and I want you to start. She mentioned Gus, the head coach Bradley. She mentioned Dave Caldwell, the GM. She mentioned Mark Lamping, the president. And she mentioned Shad Khan, obviously the owner. I would like you to tell the story about Miami when you get to your part, if you wouldn't mind. But those 4 people that are truly the ones that everybody sees as the leaders, what do you think sets them apart and makes them different or makes them a little bit more special that you would say to them, you know what, I want to follow them because I believe in them?
Yeah, you'll hear me use the word passion over and over. If you watch Gus Bradley, there's no one has more energy and passion for what he does. Are the results where we want to be today? Not yet, but when you have that passion, you'll do whatever you can to drive through and find results. Shad Khan, it's vision. That man, that owner has a vision for Jacksonville, a vision for the organization of the Jaguars, and continues to do things and make us think big and think creatively like we never would be challenged before. And then Mark Lamping, I would say professional. He has been a winner in every single level of his career. He ran sports marketing for Anheuser-Busch. He was the president of the St. Louis Cardinals for 14 years, and they were one of the strongest brands in a small market, very similar to us. He then went and opened up MetLife Stadium, the biggest monstrosity in all sports. So he's been a pro and a winner. So each one of them has something that's a little different, and for me, that's what's great, where you can learn your leadership qualities from people like that: vision, passion, and professionalism.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing that sort of unites them all is that they want to be the best. And they don't want to be the best by cutting down the competition or doing anything that's not above board. It's about challenging ourselves every day. I say that Chad is one of the toughest jobs in sports. To sell tickets for the Jaguars is not the same as selling tickets for the Patriots or the Giants. And it's about challenging ourselves.
You can use the Steelers. Yeah, use the Steelers every once in a while. Don't be afraid to use them.
It's about challenging ourselves every day in terms of how can we be better. So I remember right before I came down watching the state of the franchise address that they give, and Mark was talking about these boards they were going to put in that were going to be the biggest in the world, or in the universe sometimes we say, because as far as we know, that's true. But it's about challenging ourselves to build a new vision for that stadium, about making it a true public-private partnership. The stadium itself, we didn't build a new stadium. It looks and feels like a new stadium when you're in there just because of how the boards have gone in and what the north deck looks like now. And that comes from Shad with his vision, but they all want to be the best and by challenging ourselves to get better every day. The league has had some issues lately, stemming back to last year. I'm sure that you all probably remember what happened with Jonathan Martin. What was really striking to me is that after it happened, Dave came into my office and said, Gus came to me, what we want to do is make sure that we don't have that sort of an environment here. What do you recommend that we do to make sure that our locker room isn't that way? And that to me was sort of a really powerful moment. We're sort of in the same way that when I walked into the basement at Fenway, I felt really accepted and like this was a place where I could really, they valued my skill set. Dave coming to me on his own was really powerful to me because that meant that they were receptive to and wanted to do things as best as they can. Make sure that we get from people what they can contribute, right? And to do that, you need to eliminate the distractions and make sure you have the right culture that fosters success. So that was really valuable to me, just a really sort of important moment. In the same way, Gus, from time to time, will walk down the hall, grab senior management on the business side, pull us into an office, and just show us a motivational video that he's found because he thinks that it'll make us all better. So it's been great how inclusive and collaborative we are.
You guys talk about something that's so crucial in leadership and leading people, whether you're leading your family, your household, whether you're leading your children. Leadership's just not about work. And usually the people that have those kind of skills can lead those in those different areas as well too. But the one thing you guys talked about is gathering of information. Like the more information I get, the better decisions we can make. I know there's probably 87, 90, maybe 100 words out there that you can say what you can describe a leader. We go around the room. I've actually personally broke it down into five parts. You got to have trust, you got to have people skills, you got to have passion and vision. The one in the middle is my next question. So you got to have trust, you got to have people skills, you got to have passion, you got to have vision. But the one in the middle, when was a moment, whether it be with the Jaguars or somewhere else as a leader, where the courage aspect of a leader, because that is the part that really can define you when you need to make those kind of decisions that are very, very crucial to your organization. So when did that, or tell us a story or something where your leadership was challenged and you had to do something that was against the norm? Because it's easy to row when the seas are calm. but the seas ain't calm all the time. So what about some courage and a story or two about how you dealt with that? Chad, we'll start with you.
Well, I'll talk about one that's very relevant because it's recent now. Putting these swimming pools in the stadium, right? We have swimming pools in the stadium. We were challenged to come up with an experience that was uniquely different than your home experience. What can we do that gives Jacksonville and Everbank Fields character and personality and think out of the box? And we came up with this program of these swimming pools and these cabanas that we're selling. And right away, the media started critiquing us. If any of you watch Keith Olbermann, my good friend Keith Olbermann, he does the worst person in sports skit every night. And right after we announced these pools, the worst person in sports that day was Chad Johnson. And he put me up on TV with my picture and talked about what a crazy, asinine deal it was that we were doing this. Well, 2 months later, we sit there and we're now completely sold out in all of those products. We've generated $1.7 million in incremental revenue, and now the NFL just came down and spent 2 hours profiling our building and the things we're doing as an example of what to do. Now the phone's ringing off the hook with other teams calling and saying, how did you have the courage to do something completely different? We're the only stadium in all of sports to create that experience, and now it's paid off. How can you help it? So I think for us, it's the vision of just taking chances and standing behind your conviction and believing in it. So when they were questioning it, we didn't change our plan. We didn't change our sales strategy. We didn't change our messaging. We stuck with it and knew that our plan was right and it worked.
And so for me, my role is completely different in that Chad's constantly pushing boundaries. And in a lot of ways, for me as advisor and counselor, I'm there to protect us from ourselves and to make sure that we're always doing things the right way. Ethics is incredibly important. Your reputation is incredibly important. And it's difficult to get into specifics, but what's been great for me is that I've always been told, make sure that you do things above board. If you find a mistake, expose it and deal with it, even if it's your own. So there was a deal that I was working on, millions and millions of dollars with a high-profile client. I realized I screwed up. I just screwed up. I was tired, been working over the weekend by myself, didn't have a second set of eyes, screwed up. Deal was supposed to close the next morning. I could either just say that I had the signature pages that I was supposed to have so the deal closed, or I could come clean and call the client, who was a high-profile client, and say, look, I just need you to come in and help. And I was struggling with it. I was really struggling with it because I knew that nothing would happen and no one would ever find out. But I ended up coming clean, and it made me feel so much better. Client didn't care. They just wanted to make sure that things got done the right way. And that's what people really value. And it's, in my role, it's really important to continue to point out potential risks that we might have. Make sure that we're doing things above board so that at the end of the day, everyone is protected and better off. There's times when I'll sort of put up a stop sign for Chad and say, make sure that you think through these things. And we work on things
She's
together.
being modest. There's a lot of times she does that.
But it's an important role to play, and without having conviction in terms of and confidence in knowing that, hey, it's important that I speak up and not just let them do whatever it is that they want to do without figuring out ways to help them do it the right way. Sort of been what I've had to do throughout my career as a lawyer.
And really, pride can get in the way sometimes because you're so proudful of whatever you're trying to do, and you have this whatever, and now she's saying, well, hold on a second. And so that's important with leadership as well, too. You have to realize you have to step back sometimes and look at it again and maybe reevaluate whatever that is. You used a word, and you used it earlier. You just used it recently. You used the word belief. And when you have belief and you have faith, and you have a conviction inside you, I think one of you even used that word, a lot of that comes from something. It's something that you've either learned over the years and whatever it may be. We'll start with you, Megha, can you just tell us about one or two people that you had looked up to as you were growing through your career as a leader, that you said, and it might be somebody from a book that you read all their books and you go by their principles, whatever it is, one or two people that you thought they're a mentor, maybe you reach out to with that helpline, like that show used to be on, you can ring a helpline or whatever that's going to help you. Who do you have out there? Because I think that's as important as being a leader. Because if you're a leader at the top and you're all by yourself, it's hard. Because now you're going with all yours instead of maybe throwing it out there a little bit and seeing if everything's going to stick when you throw it.
Sure. So as a woman in this business that's dominated by men, I've actually been really fortunate to have my two sort of closest mentors have both been men, and they've been really, really good to me. So one is the managing partner, chairman at the firm where I used to work, and he does serve that role where anytime something comes up at work where I don't really know what the first step ought to be, I'll pick up the phone and call. And great leaders to me, and he's one to me, is always generous with his time. No matter how busy he is, makes you feel like you're the most important thing at that moment, and he wants to support you. And that's what I try to do for our colleagues. So I'm also responsible for overseeing HR and development at work. And to me, it's really important that no matter what else is going on, one of our colleagues comes into my office. That is the only time that I will ignore email and ignore the phone and just sit there and listen, because it's really important to give the people around you your time, which is really your most valuable resource. The other one is that professor that set me up with the Red Sox. He took a chance on putting in somebody that was not expected in an environment that is totally even more male dominated than your average business side, right? It was the baseball ops side. And he too was somebody who saw something in me, encouraged me, told me, don't limit yourself. Let your skills speak for themselves. You belong here. And that was really valuable to me, to hear that, other people will potentially try and push you down. Don't limit yourself. Don't just cut yourself off at the knees. Make sure that you feel like you belong there and have the confidence in yourself to be there.
I thought maybe you were going to say one of the baseball players you tutored.
No, they look up to me.
Chad?
For me, I of course have a sports mentor and a person that I have worked for on 3 different occasions now. He's currently the executive vice president of Dallas Cowboys now, but he helped mentor me in people. To be a leader, you're generally a leader of people, right? And to lead people, you have to understand that each and every one of you is uniquely different. And that's why Megha says we put down our phone, we don't go into an email, because we have to handle each individual problem with the people. So he really taught me people skills. But early in my career, I had a chance to meet an admiral that didn't address, and I went up similar to this and asked him a question afterward about his leadership strategy. How does he lead the men and women that serve under him? And he had given me 4 principles. This was back in 2000. 4 core principles of his leadership that today I execute and think about every single day. And what he told me back then was to make someone successful is 4 things. Educate, empower, equip, and hold accountable. And I learned that holds true in every single industry and every single program. A friend of mine just interviewed for an athletic director job. And we talked through those same principles, and he brought those principles out in his interview. And it works for his business or mine. So I got to teach and educate our staff how to do well. I've got to equip them with the tools necessary to be successful. I've got to empower them to make decisions. I can't just let them sit there and I got to make every decision for them. But then when they make those decisions, they have to be known they're accountable for that, so they make the right ones. And that's something I've had now for 15 plus years from this admiral in the Navy that's taught me that.
Can you share with us one failure that happened early in your career that really helped shape some of the things that you do now? Because we're all afraid to fail. We're all afraid to do whatever it is wrong. We're all afraid to be called to the carpet, whatever term you want to use. However, failure is not fatal. We all know that, unless you allow it to be. So can you just come up with one failure, just one thing that, and it doesn't have to be, for instance, Chick-fil-A. When they got their first freestanding store, the guy who opened their first freestanding store did an unbelievable job. So what they did is, when they went to go to their next freestanding store, they thought, we got to bring him with us so he can open that store and be the guy. So we'll just promote the assistant up because he's been there, he knows. Well, that guy went up there and almost took that store, the same store, to bankrupt. And they had to get rid of him and move him on and put him back into a mall where he was okay, and eventually got out of the corporation. And I had this conversation at Chick-fil-A. That was his failure that he talked about, that his greatest success, this guy's greatest success was also his greatest failure because he didn't promote properly. Do you have something like that or a story like that that resonates?
Yeah, I have a lot of failures.
Is that, oh, Chad has a lot, come on, man.
So first off, if you're gonna have courage to think big and do creative things, you're gonna have failures. And then you'll learn from those. But mine is very easy, and I think about it all the time. Early in my management career, I went from being a revenue producer and a sales rep to a manager of people. I was maybe 26 at the time. And at that time, I thought, well, I did so well as a sales rep that that's how I'm going to manage everybody, and they're going to do exactly what I had to do, and I'm going to make them do it my way, and that's just, I thought I was taking over the world, right? Well, I was pushing people so hard the way I wanted things to be when I was there that my boss had to pull me in and say, hey, Chad, I need you to understand what's happening here. You're starting to lose your team because you're not treating them like people. You're treating everybody the same how you did it. And that's not the case. Go learn what they're doing and put those 4 core principles into place with each one of them and lead them just like you would with an athlete. You're not going to treat every single player the same way. You're not going to treat every single student the same way. And he said, if you don't change this, you're going to lose your team. And they're not going to respond. Even though you have all this energy and you're out there working so hard and all this passion, if they don't believe in you, they're not going to do the same thing for you. And that changed that now. So now I actually go the other way. I get them to buy into me as a person so I can lead them, and then together we'll go do these great things. And that was a humbling thing to hear from your boss 4 months into your first manager's job that, hey, you're kind of stinking it up right now and you got to change.
But it's a great point because fair is not equal. And you just can't treat everybody equally. You need to be fair, but everybody's different. And I think that's awesome.
There's 2 ways to respond to that, right? I could have bottled it up or done something different, or I could have truly taken it as a learning experience, as humbling as it was, and really tried to do the things I was being taught to do. And that changed my management style forever.
Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate your heart on that.
For me, it's a similar sort of corollary type of story where it's as important to learn how to manage down as it is to learn how to manage around and up. So I think sometimes when you get negative feedback, you may want to sort of recoil and just do things the way that the other person may want you to do them. But it's as important to learn, hey, how can I manage the individuals that are reporting to me? How can I manage up and around to make sure that, and adjust the way that I'm behaving to get people to want to listen, to be a more effective voice, to be someone that people want to listen to. For me, one of the biggest challenges is that, look, we're a pretty small organization. People think of the NFL and it's a huge business, billion-dollar business, but there's not many of us at the team level. Make a lot of revenue, but ultimately sort of a small to mid-sized business. And there are times when we feel stretched because of that. I remember I had known that one of our employees was working way too much, had too much to do, had a lot of responsibility. And I always want to put people in the best position possible to whether they're either promoted internally or leave and go somewhere. That's the reason why I want people to leave. I don't ever want to leave for another reason. This was a situation where I just knew that something was happening, knew that the person was working too hard, and didn't step in time to do something about it. And so we lost them to another company, and that was fair. We deserved to lose that person because we didn't do enough for them to keep them there. And from that moment on, it was always really important to me to pause and make sure that I'm paying attention no matter how busy I am, because it's as important. I really want everybody to be happy when they come to work, to be happy and want to work, because then they'll care. And if they care, they'll want to work hard. It's the only reason why we work as hard as we do is because we care, because we want to do well. It's not about money, because that'll never...
Trust me, Monday morning was pretty difficult to come into work and do a great job unless you really cared.
Yeah.
When you come back and our product is that Sunday game. And if it doesn't go well, it can be really hard to not hang your head and feel sorry for yourself and let your staff see that and do the same type of thing. So I come in Monday morning and someone goes, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm awesome. And I wasn't. But I had to make sure everyone knew that it's okay and that we can do that. So you have to be able to care to do a great job when things are tough.
You make a great point, and I think some people don't realize it. When you are a leader, you do have moments where you're just not feeling good about maybe what you did or about where you're at or about what's going on around you. However, it's a long story short, you don't want to put on a facade because then your people skills will show through. You need to really become humble like that and really go into that day. And I think that's a great point as a leader, how you have to separate those two. We're going to go to the questions here for the students after this one last question. Like my old English teacher when I was in school, the card's going to come up in a minute in the back, so I want to make sure we stay on. I told him I'd do a great job staying on you, by the way. Nice shoe and socks.
My warm.
I like it, Chad. What would be 2 or 3 things, and Megha, we'll start with you, just 2 or 3 things that you think would be good advice for them? Not good advice for a book or for a movie or for the good of mankind, but good advice for young people, some athletes, some professionals, some in the workforce going to school at night, some don't have a lot, some have more than others. We have a whole diverse group. What would be just some advice that you could give as a leader that you think they really should do that maybe could help them as they foster and grow into a leadership role?
Sure. I would say the two things for me are, one is what Chad spoke to earlier, is find your passion. So it's the same way for me where driving up to a stadium and that being my office, that makes me really excited to go to work. Game days when people are there, I really care about those people having a good time. The sort of great moments of my life were tied to either sports or music. But I remember the 2001 World Series where they put Brian Kim in and somehow the Yankees managed to tie it up in the bottom of the ninth and somehow the Yankees managed to win those two games even though they ended up losing the series. I was so excited. I jumped up I was sit way too close to TV when I'm watching sports because I think that'll make a difference. Jumped up, ran into the wall, ran smack into the wall. Those are like the great moments. I was at Jeter's 3,000 hit game. It was a home run, had 5 hits on the day. And I want everybody else to have that experience. I remember those things. Those are the moments that stick out in life. That's why I love what I do. I'm a lawyer, right? It's not the world's most exciting job. But being a lawyer for a football team, that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. The other is to be authentic. I think that at times when you're trying to be professional or trying to fit into a mold, sometimes you may lose yourself. And while it's important to sort of shape yourself and challenge yourself and coach yourself. When I was first interviewing at a law firm, I had written my senior thesis in college on heavy metal music. And the advice I got...
Heavy metal music?
I grew up Bon Jovi,
I just want to make sure that's what you said.
So heavy metal. So I traced the masculine and working class rhetorics in the music. Advice I got from career services was take it off your resume. Just take it off your resume. People aren't going to understand it. They're not going to want to talk about it. They're going to think that you're a little bit weird. Don't do it. I left it on. And I knew who my audience was going to be, and it was going to be these senior associates, junior partner men who also listened to that same type of music. Every single interview that I went on, that's what we talked about, at least for part of it. And it was, I get it, it's weird. It's not typical to have a young woman who listened to metal, but left it on there, and it ended up being the thing that people remembered about me.
For me, one thing I tell everyone I come across is read, and I hate reading. One page puts me to sleep. But I read a lot of biographies on successful people. And I do a lot of them on tape even because it's so hard for me to actually go through the pages. But then you learn so many unique things about leaders. I just went through Steve Jobs' autobiography. Bill Walsh, the old coach of the 49ers, I just went through 2 of his books. And I'm reading Phil Jackson. All different. And every one of them has a different approach to culture and leadership. But I can take 1 or 2 little things from each one of those I incorporate into how I feel I can be as a leader. So that's one. I challenge the people I work with, my friends and colleagues, to invest 10% of their time back in that self-improvement. Really, at the employment level, I challenge them to invest 10% of their income and 10% of their time into these methods of self-improvement, reading books and seminars and things like that. And then the other thing is to truly take chances on areas outside your comfort zone.
Wow.
That's where you learn. I had a degree in biology. Somehow I have overseen sales, marketing, broadcasting in areas that I have no idea about because I took chances and went and got involved in them.
And you educated yourself so you could do them well.
Yeah,
do them all really well.
And so when I got involved in broadcasting, I went out and got marketing for dummies and started at the bottom and said, let's go learn, but I pushed the envelope and was uncomfortable. And our coach, Gus Bradley, talks about that. Being uncomfortable a little bit is okay because it means you're going to learn. It means you're going to push yourself. So those chances are important. If you get an opportunity with a company, an internship, and it might be in one area of business, ask how you can go participate in other areas of business. Ask, hey, my shift's done today, but can I go help somebody else out? Because that's when you'll learn.
Chad told an interesting story to us. And we're going to bring the mic around and ask questions. If you could say your name and if you could say your major, that would be great so we can hear the diversity that's in this room. Chad told us a neat story when he drove from Wisconsin to Florida. I believe you're going to the Panthers, right?
Yeah.
And it was his first job in hockey. He knew absolutely nothing about hockey. And he bought Hockey for Dummies. And
Very true.
read that book all the way from, unfortunately, he was reading while he was driving. We should have got audio on book. But my point is, it's just a good example about how you can just, whatever you want to do, you can be passionate about it, you can learn about it and do it.
I was coming from the NBA and I didn't even know what icing was, which is one of the most frequently called penalties in hockey. And I had to read that book just to figure those things out.
So good thing people write the books.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't need them, Harvard. So, Allison, you have a microphone, and we'll just ask questions. If you could please, we got 2 microphones here. So anybody, just come on up, step up to the mic. Come on, just come on up. You have to form a line. Whatever you want to do, don't be shy, ask questions. You only get so many opportunities. Guys, there's 32 NFL teams. There's only very few people like this that you're going to be in front of. So if you got questions, don't wait. Don't wait till the Jason's Deli. Ask them all, because you might be able to help somebody else.
Hi guys, I'm Ken. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for coming, by the way. I'm a sports management major. What's the daily job for you guys? Like, as in like day-to-day operations?
What's the daily schedule like?
Well, it seems sports has changed. There is no off season anymore. We get in pretty early. Both Meg and I get in pretty early because we want to make sure our days are ready for when the rest of our staff gets there, that we're organized and ready for them. So we get in 7:30 in the morning. For me, I'm in the revenue producing side, so I'm either helping our staff on sales calls, presentations, or things they need to do, or I'm out in the market talking to potential fans. Today I spoke at a luncheon. Tonight I'm here. The more I can talk to fans and tell them the great story, the better. So it normally ends 7 o'clock at night or so. Always depends on what the time of year is, but in sports we work hard, and I go home and never feel like I worked a minute. And that's the great part of our job.
My schedule's about the same, but the other piece of it is that I would say that we're always thinking about it. So probably once a week around 9 o'clock, I'll get an email from one of our colleagues, and there'll be a group of 4 or 5 of us on an email saying, hey, did you see what happened at Michigan today? Hey, did you see that Chad was the worst on Oberman today? And we're always thinking about it. We're always looking around to figure out, hey, what else might we be missing, or what can we learn from? And we share that with one another.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Styron, and I'm a major in communication. And my question would be, as you were discussing about stand out as your own person. And when you're applying to many jobs in the industry, it's all online. So you have to stand out on a piece of paper. What would be your recommendation of how to be able to really stand out? Because it's really hard just applying for an entry-level position fresh out of college, and all you have is that experience, and you wonder if that's going to be enough to be able to make the cut, especially if you're in a pile of so many.
Heavy metal.
I actually recently posted for a job and just finished looking through 300 some odd resumes. The things that I looked for were, one, which is sort of simple, but that resume's got to be perfect. I get turned off pretty quickly if I see an imperfection on there, because then I think I can't necessarily trust that person. And to me, the most valuable quality in an employee, that I can trust them. That even if they may not be able to do something right the first time, that they'll at least come to me and know to come to me. So that's sort of the first piece. The other thing that I look for is, how is this person different than the others? So I try and look for someone with some unique experience, or who's well-rounded, or who's done a lot of activities. So there's people who sort of have gone through the world of sports repeatedly, and that's great. Then there's people who come to you with the biology resume like Chad, and that's interesting to me, right? So I did everything from coaching our flag football team in law school to participating in student government. And so I looked for people who might have had unique experiences and the diversity of experience that they could then bring.
Who are the presidents?
It was class marshals, so there were 4 of us.
For me, it's to diversify yourself. Megha touched on it a little bit, but all the different experiences that you can achieve are so important. If I see somebody that's just graduating college and they went to college, I did my 4-year, I did nothing else out of the box, it can be challenging. Athletes many times can't get a side job or can't do other things because their time is important. So it's finding other things that they were part of, leadership organizations, other extracurricular things. When I can see that people will stretch themselves and that they have leadership qualities, whether they were captains of intramural teams or leaders on other organizations, I think for me is really important. So I'm not necessarily set on the school education part. That part I know, graduating from UNF, you'll have a great degree and you've done well. I want to see all the other things you can do as a person, as a human being, and where you stretch yourself. So charitable initiatives are always important. Volunteering your time, leading any other group that you're a part of is always important.
You know, it's interesting. Skype is huge right now, going around with interviews now. One of our kids got a Skype, and he was 6'8", and he was put together like a brick wall, but he looked like a normal human being. But he made it 50, and when he got there, he got the job immediately because he stuck out like a sore thumb. Now, he was very bright, but he also stuck out like a sore thumb, so it's interesting to see once you can get past that. But Skype's huge. Skype's huge, that's the newest wave going. Back to you, that's a great question. Go ahead, next question, please.
Yeah, no, man, you were talking about putting John Bon Jovi or whatever on a resume, and he was talking about marketing, but what kind of advice could you offer a young Arthur who's trying to make himself stand out? Because I know you were talking about disc and everything, so.
Did you say Arthur?
Arthur. A young writer.
Yeah, so a young writer.
So I will from time to time, there are now, and there wasn't so much when I was in school, but SSRN has become a really popular place where papers are published. And so at least for lawyers from time to time, I'll go look and see what college students are researching. So I'll go look and see what's been done about closed captioning in stadiums and how other states are doing. The best places for a lot of that is just on SSRN, where a lot of articles have been published, looking at how student athletes are going to be treated. I can go read that Northwestern athlete case, but it's actually a lot more interesting to me to go find work that someone else has done and some students analyze it and written a paper. I did a lot of independent writing during law school to get credits, and it was helpful because it gives you the opportunity to become an expert in things, and the way that the internet has allowed you to become, so anyone can become a publisher, which is great. To then have that there for other people to rely on. It's sort of a small world in sports, and people who were on Sports Law Blog or on SSRN ended up making a name for themselves that way.
That's a good point. Chad, do you have anything to add?
No, I think, finding your mentors and taking chances are important. So if you have work, getting those words in front of somebody is so important. And finding people that you can trust to get that in front of, and then they start to share, and you take chances to where you can put that information is just very important.
Next, please.
My name is Zach Friesman. I'm a sports management major. My question for you is, sometimes it's not what you know, it's not who you know, but who knows you. So what were some of the keys to building relationships throughout your careers?
So I talk about doing something uniquely different. You'll hear me use that word all the time. Do something that will make you stand out if it's who you know or how you get to know them. And I do that in every aspect of my life, even today then. So applying online, there's all these processes you need to follow. It doesn't mean that you can't bend the rules or work outside of the box sometimes.
That's Chad's philosophy for a lot of things.
And that's what will make me, seeing somebody that is creative and going to push the boundaries and have courage to do something different. That, an example, silly example, but right now we are trying to target the top prospects in the marketplace that we're not doing business with. So I've just ordered 100 knives. Anyone here sell Cutco knives? I just ordered 100 Cutco knives with the
heck of a deal you could have got.
With the company name and logo engraved on one side of the knife.
Because who buys those things? I always wonder who buys those.
I just bought a bunch of them. And I'm having them hand delivered in a box that says, "Let's help cut through the clutter with a unique message and a way to get in front of these people." So I'm doing something that's different than an email invite or something else. They're going to remember that. That alone then will maybe open the door for those next steps. So it's being creative in those environments to make yourself stand out from the other 200 resumes that Megha had to go through. That's very important.
And know what your strengths are. So I'm not a networker. I'm not a public speaker. Chad's really good at walking into a room and taking command of it. I'm more quiet. It took me a longer time at work to get people to trust me and want to come to me, because I'm just sort of quiet and let my work speak for itself. But to do that, then I work really hard. And then people learn to trust you. But I work really, really hard because I know that that's actually where my strength lies, is in delivering an excellent work product.
I met a young lady. I spoke at an event last week, and she came up and she told me her name, and it kind of rung a bell. But it didn't quite register for me. She had applied for a job. And we had gone through the interview, and it didn't advance all the way through the process. But she knew where I was speaking and came to that event, stuck around after, and came and met me. And we had a great conversation. And now when I'm going through my next phases of hiring, she will be part of that interview process because she sought out where I was to go make that introduction and get to know me. And so there's a lot of times like that, you'll see all of these things going on in the community, and they might be people that are part of industries you'd like to be in. And that's where you can go show your passion.
Great question. Next, please.
Hi guys, my name is Savannah and I'm a sophomore in communications. And I was wondering, because I know you guys know that you don't have the best record in the NFL, but you guys keep bringing new things like the pool and the big video boards and like the halftime show that's really cool. How do you guys continue to keep the positivity? Because I know you said you do like things outside of the box, but how do you continue to push the envelope even though it's difficult?
Yeah, I mean, the record is what everybody in this room knows and remembers, right? And that's the hardest thing. You sell tickets for a living, and I believe we are 6-27 since I arrived. So that's been a very challenging time. You have to do things that are again, uniquely different and create a different experience. But one thing I'll say from a leadership standpoint is I don't hesitate to tell people I'm upset and tell our staff that we're upset that we lost the game and lost so poorly, because that's authentic. You shouldn't fake it. But it's how you channel that and how you communicate with everybody. So for our staff, I'll come in after a tough game and I'll explain why I'm upset, but then I'll point out the good things. And here's what we can focus on. And let's take those good things and build on them, and that's the fan experience. The very next day, the radio was saying that our fan experience is one of the best they've ever been a part of. And they said that before they went into what happened on the team. So for me, I'll say, let's go take that information, let's repurpose it, let's share that with our fans so they know what we can control is very different. So it becomes hard to motivate people when you have the ups and downs in sports because it's an emotional business. You know, we sell fun for a living.
But your vision is clear. And when there's clear vision, obviously people will follow. There's never been an unproductive, confused person. So when we were at Baylor in 2003, one player killed another. So can you imagine selling tickets after a murder takes place in your own locker room? And because Coach's vision was so clear, the year before we got good, we raised the price of the tickets and we charged people a value of $1,000 to even buy the tickets that we raised the price on. I told Coach, that's insane, that's so unintelligent, why are we doing this? We're going to chase people away. We had the largest ticket sales we ever had, and now it's through the roof. So again, Coach's vision was incredible, and it was really, you know, on the forefront. And I think that's a great point. I think you got to stick with your passion and your vision. I think that's a great point. Next question, please.
Hi, yes, my name is Sean Freeman, a sport management major. My question is about possibly being LEED certified or fixing the environmental footprint at the stadium. I remember before there was always like a cloud of smoke. I have a 7-year-old asthma, and now the smoking's moved away, which is a good change, but where do you see the environmental footprint change coming in the future?
So Jacksonville's sort of an interesting community in that on this came out during the stadium renovation. So on the north side of the stadium, there's actually a restrictive covenant because there is some contamination there, but it's been capped. And it came out as part of the renovations, cleaned it up with it. The stadium itself, in terms of the internal environment, smoking is now on the plaza level, right? And
I would say outside.
Outside, not on the range
Thank you.
anymore.
Yeah.
And then the shipyard, which is sort of the front door to the stadium, but not developed right now. There's some contamination there, but that has also been capped. And I think that once that site gets developed, you'll be able to deal with it. But what would be great is that Jacksonville to me was born with two really beautiful things: the river and the beach. And so it's sort of part of the goal behind bringing the pools into the stadium was to really highlight what's uniquely Jacksonville, and the environment to me is one of the things that's really uniquely Jacksonville.
You know, and to go further, what you talked about, the LEED certification and some of those other things, there are a lot of entities that work within the building that we're in. We, the Jaguars, are a tenant. SMG runs and manages the building for the city. We have third-party vendors in our cleaning services. So the key is that we are now all on the same page, and all work as one group, and one individual, and all of those other entities all report up into one person on the Jaguar side, so that we can make sure all those common goals are met. So you're seeing things on building processes and improvement and recycling issues and smoking issues, because you now have everybody functioning as one group, as opposed to a bunch of individuals with different agendas.
Don't get rid of the Maxwell House smell, please.
Yeah, that's
You gotta keep that
that's
public
great.
smell. That thing's awesome. Yes, please. Good
My
question.
name is Carrie, and I'm majoring in sociology and political science. And I'm also a member of the volleyball team here. And my question is about goal setting and how you guys, in your leadership roles, set goals that are attainable and reachable and motivate your employees.
So for me, I guess I'll jump first
Yeah.
if you don't mind. I use what are called SMART goals. Many of you may know that again, but or know what the SMART goal stands for. I challenge our team, and they do SMART goals 30, 60, 90 days, and we review them each and every period together. So they review their goals when they submit them to me. They review their goals at each of those deadlines, and we work together to make sure they are attainable that, when you go through the acronym of SMART goals, there's certain criteria that you have to follow, and make sure that that's critical. Because if you come in on the day and you're just not quite sure what to do, all of a sudden you go, oh, it's 5 o'clock, man, I'm so busy, the day got away from me. But if you come in and have true defined criteria that you can check off, it's so important. So in revenue, you always have to have revenue goals, but that's separate from their personal goals. And I also make them have personal and professional when they submit them, because that goes to the topic of treating them as a person. So if their personal goal is to see family members more, or work out more, or get more sleep, or do those things, I can help to incorporate that into their work environment as well. So I make sure they submit both personal and professional, which I don't see a lot of other leaders do as often as I think it should.
Not like George Costanza sleep under his desk.
Right, yeah. Got a little alarm shelf.
Do you guys have some goals?
So at the organization as a whole, it's really important. Chad talked about accountability earlier. It's really important that people know clearly what it is that is expected of them. So on the one hand, it's important to challenge yourself and think creatively, but you don't want to have goals that aren't concrete, because if you never achieve them, then you're never going to feel better. You're never going to be able to continue to motivate yourself in the face of adversity. So the fact that they're specific, time-oriented, and then you get data to support them, right? You track how you're doing it. It's a little bit easier on the dollar side, but one of the more fun things that we're doing at work right now is we're in a fitness challenge. Half the staff is wearing Fitbits. Chad and I were walking out of the parking garage, and Chad tried to get in the elevator. I was like, I don't know that I want to lose that point to you today. But I want to be in better shape, right? But I also want to beat Chad, and I want to walk more steps than him today. And those sorts of things help, because I have a concrete goal, which is beating Chad by walking.
I think you bring up a great point that we lose, and one of my biggest failures as a father and a husband was my balance, and where my balance was. And I think as leaders, sometimes we talk about how hard we work and how many hours we work and how we punch the clock and we do X, Y, and Z, but we also have wives and we also have children and we also have others, whatever things that you do. Exercising, to me, is a number one you must do every single day for a lot of different reasons. And I think it's helped me become more balanced, which is oddly to the point, but there's a great way to put it. But what happens if you don't obtain a 30? What happens if you don't get to the 30? I mean, that's part of goals is you don't get there. So now what?
Yeah, and that's our job as a leader, to find out where we fell short and then put a roadmap in place to make sure you get there next time. So when someone reviews goals with me, the objective is not for me to point out what they missed and punish them for that. So the objective for me is to say, okay, what do we need to change to make sure next time we get to check that box off? And that's the important part. And when an employee is not performing to the levels that we would like them to, our job is to go down and write that roadmap with them. Here are the areas for improvement, and teach them how to do that. So I think it is very important.
And I think that's huge right there, because not everybody's going to be. Sometimes you have to do things. You want to re-mentor them, you want to reteach them, but at some point, if they can't get the job done, they can't get the job done. You got to move on.
Yeah.
And in our business, obviously, that's.
Excuse me, we want to get these last 5 questions in, and we are about 5 minutes left. So
let's go. Next one. Here we go.
My name is Andrew Pataki. I'm a sports management major here. And with the relationship between an organization as the Jaguars as well as a corporation based in Jacksonville such as Everbank, how important is it for a sports organization to really get involved with businesses and corporations, and large and small, within the community?
Well, so if you look at the NFL model across all teams, when you look at the corporate support versus the individual fan support, if you want to look at number of tickets sold, it generally is about 3/4 corporate support. And they're buying these, although at the end of the day it reaches down to the employee level and individuals, the corporate relationship is very important. For us, we've spent the better part of the last couple of years working on our corporate, I'll call it relationship and reputation. We have to be a great standing citizen in this community. And you'll see all of the organizations and charities we're now supporting. So that when a business looks to say, do I want to partner with that Jaguars organization and spend the limited dollars I have from a marketing or hospitality budget with an organization, they want to know that we are a good standing organization. They're not going to run into challenges or problems with our brand. And you've seen it in the NFL now with some of the players and the issues that are there. You've seen it with the Minnesota Vikings losing a sponsor shortly after the Adrian Peterson announcements came out. So we work so hard to make sure that our culture and relationship in the community is strong. So so that there's never that issue that comes across.
And it's that reputation that led Everbank to sign an extension with us for 10 years.
That's a commitment. Go ahead.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Maria. I'm majoring in international business, and my question is actually for Megha. Is that how you pronounce your name? I don't know how many women in leadership positions are right now in the organization, but what challenges do you face as a leader, being a woman in an industry that is mostly men?
So I think, Coach, actually you talked about it. It's about finding balance. I'm never going to live in a world where I have a wife, right? And I mean that in the sense of it is difficult as the model shifts and as gender roles shift. It is difficult for me. If I was a man, you could imagine a world where, at least traditionally, then I would have a wife who stayed at home and raised kids. I don't know that that's so easy for someone like me to find, a wife that's going to stay home and raise my kids for me. I think that the challenge for both young women and young men today is how do we support each other? Because the young men my age, they also want careers and lives, and then they also want kids. And how do we collectively, it's not just a woman problem, I think it's a challenge for men too, because businesses not letting their male employees or not encouraging them to take paternity leave, that hurts them. It also hurts me, right? You have to support both men and women wanting to find balance for either to be able to achieve it. So I need organizations to get as comfortable with men doing things like taking paternity leave or taking time off from work or wanting balance. It can't be the young men that are expected to stay at work because their wives or significant others are otherwise going to pick up kids. I need everybody to buy in for me to be able to ever find balance.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
Alrighty, thank you all for coming out. My name is Travis King. My major is computer science. I had a question. How do you foster positive corporate culture in your office so that you guys, I know after that game it's hard, like you said, to have your head hanging high. How do you have that positivity? How do you foster that?
You know, for me, one of the first things that Meg and I have done since we arrived was to create a very open and collaborative workspace. Initially, we came in, it was a lot of private rooms, high cubes, you couldn't see everybody. You knew they were there, but you couldn't see everybody. We've come down and lowered everything so that I can sit in our room with our staff and literally see everyone's faces and eyes and communicate with them. And that open, collaborative space allows the energy to go through to everybody. And when things are going great and there's a buzz in the room and you're kind of down that day, for whatever reason, you're in a funk, when you come in and you can feel the energy and collaboration of everybody else, it naturally picks you up. So I believe that's very important. The collaborative environments is very important. And then I believe that it's okay to say, there's a problem, I made a mistake, there's an error, but do it in a positive way that makes them see what they can do different than a negative way. Some managers and leaders manage by fear and intimidation. Others manage by education and empowerment. And if we can do that education and empowerment, employees feel it's okay to take some chances and take risks. And when you take risks, that's when success comes.
And recognize people. Give credit where credit's due. It's really important to me that every time that someone that is reporting to me does something well, that they get recognized for it, not just by me, but by others in the company. Chad takes his guys out to go play cornhole in the plaza. You got to celebrate the successes and find time to have fun. We work in a football team. It should be fun, and it's stressful, and it's high pace, but it's important to take time to remember that hey, it's work, but it can also be fun.
Last question, please.
Hi, my name is Kosser. I am a psychology and sociology major with the minor in community leadership. My question is, in the beginning of in this talk, you spoke about opportunities and being able to take advantage of those opportunities whenever and however they come about. How do you gain that confidence in yourself and in your future and having to take those opportunities? A lot of students will go back home because we know that we can save money because we don't know if we're going to get a job. How do you know that when you get a job position, a possible position across the country, that you should take it because you have confidence in yourself? How do you gain that confidence?
Well, number one, you heard me say earlier, push yourself outside of your comfort zone. For me, I didn't always have that confidence. When I took that first job, I didn't always know I would succeed, but I found my passion. And when you have that passion, I knew I would do whatever it would take to be successful there. So You don't find that confidence until you start taking chances and then have successes. So I think it's okay to feel uncomfortable sometimes and take that chance. I also was lucky enough, I knew I had a support structure in place. And when I took that job and moved down to Florida, I remember driving across the Florida-Georgia line, throwing my ice scraper up in the air because I no longer needed it. I'm moving down here. But I knew that if I got there and failed, I had a support structure in place, mentors in place that would help coach me, teach me, and I would bounce back. I knew I wouldn't end up on the street and have no other second chances. So sometimes it's just remembering that we do have family, friends, and mentors who will be there to pick us up if it doesn't go the way we planned, and that lets you take that chance.
I mean, I went from Manhattan to Jacksonville, and so it was as different as things could be. My family is all up north, but I'm as risk averse as they come, and so I did my homework, right? I knew who was at this organization and made me want to come. I knew what values Shad had. I knew what Mark had done before. I knew how attractive Dave was on that GM market that year, and I knew that Gus was super green and had actually gotten passed over by a number of teams, and we, in a great way, lucked into him. But I knew what his personality was, and coming down, I met with management. It took me a while to get comfortable, but once I did, right? I educated myself so that some of those doubts would go away. And then, like Chad said, it's always really important to be nice to people and to leave in a way that leaves everybody with a positive memory, because I knew that worst case scenario, I failed, I'd go back and beg my old boss for my job back, and he'd give it to me.
Let's thank Megha and Chad for their time.